Hey guys, how you doing? Just wanted to have a quick one here where I talk about what's going on with the CERB, what's going on with the Trudeau government, what's going on in Parliament in general. So I'm going to start with the narrative that the media is trying to convince you is actually going on, and then I'm going to move on to the actual narrative about what is actually serious. So the Trudeau government tries to pass a bill that has in it, like at the bottom of page 53, a paragraph 92, a handout, or not a handout, but a help, an aid to people with disabilities. The bill is actually about going after people who have committed CERB fraud, right? Now, clearly, there are lots of people who feel like they have committed CERB fraud because when the Trudeau government announced that that was their intention, to go after people who had committed CERB fraud, about 200,000 people, just under 200,000 people, willingly just sort of paid back what they had taken from the CERB. So clearly there's a lot of fear and anxiety in the society and people are paying pretty close attention when Justin Trudeau can just say that that's their intention, and without actually passing legislation, a good chunk of people just willingly pay back the money that they had taken from CERB. Now, the reason why I keep going like this when I'm talking about the CERB fraud, right? That's a bit of a joke, because if we were actually talking about passing a legitimate basic income program, there would be just no such thing as fraud, right? Like, how could you fraud a system that gives you free money? Right, that just says to you, like, we're just going to give you what you need to get food and shelter, right? You can't actually fraud that system. So the fact that the Trudeau Liberals are trying to root out fraudsters, while of course doing no investigation whatsoever on the massive corporate fraud and the massive scale fraud from the billionaire class. I mean, who gives a shit about poor people, right? You can go after poor people all day. And that's fundamentally what that bill was about. It was a way to assault the poor and the vulnerable and the working class. It's a method by which the ruling class can continue harassing the most vulnerable citizens in the society under this guise of helping, right? It's total bullshit. It's total nonsense. And so what happened, because it's completely asinine and bullshit, so what happened is that the NDP stand up and they say, hey, this looks like bullshit, because it's totally bullshit. And because the Liberals are in a minority government, they can't just jam through legislation that hurts the populace, right? They actually have to vet the legislation. And so the NDP stand up and say, hey, this looks like bullshit. We're absolutely not going to go along with this because it's total bullshit. And the Liberals go, oh, well, you're not going to let us do it? Oh, those conservatives. The conservatives aren't letting us put this bill through because, which gives an extension to money for people with disabilities on page 53A4893B. And that's the narrative that the Liberals are going with, and that's the narrative that the right-wing media, because there is no left-wing media left, it's all right-wing media, that's the narrative they're going with, that the Liberals and conservatives had a disagreement, and the conservatives are evil because they don't want to give money to people with disabilities, and meanwhile the narrative, the actual narrative that is actually going on, which is the Liberals wanted to go after the poorest and most vulnerable citizens in the society. That's just going to get swept under the rug, and no one's going to talk about that anymore. That's over, right? Any kind of narrative that comes out of the NDP that says, like, hey, Liberals, you were going after the most poor and vulnerable people in our society, that's just going to go away. And that's just because, like, right now our media is essentially just a WWE outlet, right? Like, it's like huge chunks of, like, when this pandemic started, I actually thought that, like, only maybe 30% of the populace was gullible, right? As I've gone along, I've come to understand that it's more like 70 to 75%, right? Like, enormous swaths of the populace are incredibly gullible and are just absolutely willing to go along with what these media outlets are saying. When the media outlets, like, people will actually say, the media is not trustworthy, we shouldn't trust them, and then the media will release something, like the now far-right rag, the Toronto Star, will say something like, oh, the Conservatives and the Liberals had a tiff. What a tiff the Conservatives and the Liberals are. And people will be like, oh, wow, what a tiff the Conservatives and the Liberals are into. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? That's like a WWE storyline, right? It's literally just like, and in this corner, the pale-skinned wonder, Andrew Mayonnaise Shear. And he comes in, and all these racists are like, yeah, let's go hang some First Nations people. And then Justin, and then the announcer's like, oh, and in this corner, the reigning champion, Montreal's own Justin Blackface Trudeau. And he comes in, and he's just like in an Aladdin costume, right? And they look at one another, and they go like, you are the worst person, you're racist. And then the Conservatives are like, funny thing coming from you. And they just have like this awkward, absolutely obvious, absolutely scripted, completely transparent. Unless you're thick and you still listen to the media as if it's interested in informing you in anything. And people literally watch this act that is absolute propaganda bullshit, and they just go along with it instead of pausing for a minute and going, oh, wait a minute. These people are liars. They routinely lie. They've actually done nothing but lie for the last 40 years and have been working very closely with the political establishment to make our lives worse. Oh, maybe I should listen to what they say only to hear what the sociopaths think, so that I can say, ah, man, what a bunch of horseshit you guys are peddling. And I can turn to my compatriots and be like, can you believe this absolute fucking total nonsense that these absolute hacks are trying to pass off as news? Can you believe the manufactured consent? Can you believe the absolute asinine bullshit? The framing of the debate within these limited, narrow parameters that they're willing to tolerate? And like 70% of the population is just like, oh, look at that. I guess that's serious. Look, it's the liberal and the conservative. And the reality is that the liberals and the conservatives work for the same people. It's like when the WWE event ends, right? When they're done playing their game, where they're shouting whatever nonsense statements they're shouting at one another, when the cameras shut off, they go backstage and they shake each other's hands. And Trudeau is like, well, sure, that was a good job today, you know? Like, we got to make sure that the people think that we are separate from one another. And you're doing a great job playing the heel, you know? You're doing a good job. And Andrew Scheer is just like, oh, yeah, Justin, you're doing a super good job of controlling the populace and just, you know, doing the absolute bare minimum to ensure that our owners maintain power. Like, they work together. They're allies. They work for the same people. And the only reason why there's any incentive for the Trudeau government and for the Liberals in general to cede on any kind of issue is because they like being in power. Being in power means that they get to go to the fancy dinners, and it means they get to, you know, shake people's hands and have important conversations and be important. Because I'm a liberal, and I believe in appearing like I give a shit about people, but I'm not actually going to give a shit about people. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to look like I want to do something, and that's going to make me feel really nice, right? There's this great Louis C.K. bit where he talks about how he's on a plane, he's in first class, and there's this veteran, this military fellow who comes in, and Louis C.K. talks about how, and I think about how nice it would be if I gave him my seat on the plane, right? I don't give him the seat on the plane, absolutely not, but it makes me feel nice that I would even think about doing that. And that's the Liberals, right? They don't do anything, right? They just feel good that they think about doing things. And the absolute gullibility of the populace is that it seems as though the populace is like, and that's enough. It's enough that they think about doing something nice. That's good. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, what the fuck are you absolutely talking about? And in the meantime, as this Serb lapses and Trudeau and Scheer play this game where they're opposed to one another when they're really allies who work with one another, people are being hurt, right? The Serb is ending. People are going to be thrown into the streets. People are going to be homeless. People are going to lose. They've already lost their jobs, right? They're already in a state of absolute despair. You can take a look at the states and see exactly how this goes. There's going to be mass evictions. There's going to be mass homelessness. There's going to be mass unemployment. And if the Trudeau Liberals don't actually extend the Serb benefits, then it's going to have serious consequences. And what's absolutely hilarious to me, like, the right-wing media, because there is no left-wing media left in Canada, the right-wing media is like, oh, it's going to cost us $57 billion if we wanted to extend the Serb to the end of the year. It'd be $57 billion. Oh my God, $57 billion. Meanwhile, the corporate cash hoard is $650 billion, right? That's our productivity that they extracted from us under the lie that it would trickle back down into the society, which it obviously has not. And so it's like, what is that? It's like one, oh man, I'm so bad at math. It's like one, it's not even a tenth. How much is that? If you're a math guy, you let me know how much the fraction is, but it's like 1/12, 1/8, I don't know. But it's such a small, like, here's what I do know in terms of math. $50 billion is significantly smaller than $650 billion. And that's not even getting into the personal corporate cash hoard that is going on, which is like $150 billion. So we're entering this like cartoon level of absolute asinine idiocy where Canadians are just gullibly just like, oh yeah, we're just gonna, yeah, everything's told, the Liberals are gonna do the right thing. They're not gonna do the right fucking thing, buddy. Like, while you're sitting on your ass, drinking beer and watching hockey because you don't actually give a fuck about what's going on in your life and around you, people are being evicted from their homes. And I'm here. I'm here to gather those people. That's what I'm here for. This is what this video is for. Is in the weird hope that maybe somebody will actually glom onto it, and before we know it, we are standing in front of the people of power. Because I'm here to create a protest movement. I'm here to join a protest movement. I'm here to celebrate protest movements. I'm not interested in negotiating with these people anymore. The Liberals have revealed themselves as complete complicit cowards. They work for the same people the Conservatives do. They're not actually interested in helping anyone. And I think that will come as a shock to many of the people in the Liberal Party, the realization that they are not on the side of good. And it will, I think, take many people being rendered completely homeless for some of these people in the Liberal Party to actually think, oh, maybe we're the baddies. You are. If you're in the Liberal Party, or if you support the Liberal Party and you see this, you're a bad guy. I consider you a bad guy. You are supporting people being thrown into the streets. You are supporting mass evictions. You are supporting the absolute worst outcomes that our society can possibly deliver to its citizens. That's what you want. That's what you're hoping for. And if you don't like the sound of that, and if that offends you, then stop voting Liberal. Stop supporting Liberal people. Because Liberals are just conservatives who throw crumbs at the populace instead of break their knees. Yeah. I think that's the end of this video. Like, share, subscribe, do your shtick. Oh, and if you feel like throwing an insult my way, I think that's super hilarious. Have fun.